Welcome to the series where I test out money-making methods from the OSRS Wiki. Feel free to leave suggestions on which moneymaker you'd like to see next. And also, if you didn't already know, I have a nice playlist that I've created that has all of the previous moneymakers that I've already tried, so go ahead and check it out if you haven't already. With that being said, let's get into the video. So for today's moneymaker, I thought we'd go ahead and do one of my favorites from way back in the day, and that is Barrows. Also, this second comment you see here was interested in me doing it in maxed gear, and I gotta say I'm a little interested as well, so that is what we will be doing today. But don't worry, because later on throughout the video, whenever I'm showing my gear setup, I will be showing some other gear setups that you can use to do this method. Also, make sure you give the wiki page a read before trying this moneymaker, because there does seem to be quite a lot more requirements than what we normally deal with. It's also important to note that this moneymaker heavily relies on the Barrows items that you will get whenever you were doing this moneymaker, so in this 1 hour, if we don't get an item, obviously our profit is going to be lower than what it says here, so just keep that in mind. One very important thing that I greatly recommend you get is the Mauritania Hard Diaries done, because when you do that, you get 50% more runes from the Barrows chest. This will definitely help out your overall profit depending on how long you want to stay here. It's always nice to get those extra runes, especially if you are on a bit of a dry streak. For this video, I also thought that I'd go ahead and put the Barrows teleport in my portal nexus. I have all these new teleports that I can add there that I have not added. The only ones that I added were the ones that came out like on release date for this portal. So since we're doing a Barrows video, I thought we'd go ahead and invest in this teleport. Now it does require the runes for 1000 casts of it, so it is pretty pricey, but I think in the long run, it'll pay for itself. Now, if you don't have a portal nexus with the Barrows teleport in it, you can simply use the Barrows teleport tablets. That's what I used before even making this video. Now, as for the gear setup, here is the best that I could do. There are a couple upgrades that I'm missing, but I couldn't either afford them or I don't have them. Namely, the Sanguinesti staff can be a better staff for max gear, and I'm also missing the Inferno cape, so we'll be using the fire cape for this one. But everything else is pretty much the same as what the wiki states. We have our full ancestral, the occult, the tormented bracelet. We have the primordial boots with the berserker ring for our melee switch into claws. We will be using claws against Carol, and then for range I'm using the elite void with the anguish. I'm also bringing the imbued heart to boost my magic, and I have a super combat and ranging potion to boost the other stats as well. And then I have one of each rune type that you get from the Barrows chest and 1 coin, just so that it doesn't disorganize my inventory. And as I said before, this is just going to be me testing out max gear. There are plenty of other gear setups that you can use. If you just head over to the wiki, they have plenty of other tabs that you can check out depending on what your skill level is. And honestly, this max gear is kind of overkill. I mean, you can definitely get away with just using Void, or maybe even just going Graceful if your stamina runs out too fast. Here is an example of the gear setup that I used to use back when I did Barrows. It was just a simple Void switch from mage to range, and I would use the salve necklace to kill these skeletons quickly, because I do tend to kill at least 3 skeletons to get my percentage up. At lower levels, you probably will need to bring some prayer potions and some food, just in case you take damage or if you need to protect melee against Darok. But luckily enough for us, we are going to be using my house to get to Barrows, and we're going to be using the Ornate Rejuvenation Pool that is in here to restore our stats, so we won't be needing food or prayer. Although I did bring a prayer pot just in case I got a Darok tunnel. Now, as for the rotation for doing the Barrows Brothers, I simply start with Darok and go in a clockwise rotation, and I end with Aram, but depending on your level and your gear, you might want to experiment a little bit to see what works best for you. The reason why I start with Darok is because I think that Protect Melee is probably most useful against him, since he can definitely hit you the hardest. As for the rest of the rotation, I just go clockwise just because it's fast and easy. But I do remember that whenever I first started this as a moneymaker back in the day, I did have a certain rotation that I did that I kind of put together when I figured out what I needed to prioritize first. Like I said, it'll depend on what gear you have and what your levels are, so just experiment until you find what works for you. Now I gotta say, this was my first time doing the Barrows tunnels in almost max gear, so I wasn't really sure what to expect. I mean, there were a lot of switches, but I don't think I messed them up too badly. And also, having Dragon Claws for Carol really helped out, and it was really nice because most of the time you could finish off Carol in 2 specs. As for the Ancestral for the Mage Gear, I honestly didn't feel like I was doing too much extra damage. I still felt like I was splashing a lot, so I don't know, maybe I just had bad RNG. And speaking of bad RNG, I did have it down here in the tunnels. I got a lot of bad paths where I had to pretty much run around the entirety of the dungeon, and that kind of sucked because it did eat into the time. But that's just how it goes sometimes. And speaking of the paths, the Barrows plugin actually used to have a minimap that would show you what doors were open, and that was pretty helpful, but I do believe it got removed whenever the RuneLite clients and other third-party clients were being questioned about, you know, their plugins and the integrity of the game. So they removed that, but it still seems that they have the puzzle solver, which basically highlights what the right answer is, which isn't really necessary, but it is nice to have. The questions don't really change, and there's only, I think, 3 of them, so once you do this a few times, you'll memorize the answer right away. And I'm not sure if you noticed, but early on, one of the rewards that I got from the chest was around 1800 coins, and that really surprised me, because back when I did Barrows, I don't think I ever got such a low reward, especially after getting the potential up to 88%, so that was kind of a shocker. I was kind of expecting to at least get some runes every time, but I don't know, I guess there's always a small chance of not getting any loot whatsoever. Regardless of that bad luck, we did manage to get an item right here, and it was the Torag's helmet. So not the most expensive item in the game, it's definitely only 200k right there as you can see in the game chat, but still it was nice to see an item for this video. While I was doing this, I couldn't help but feel the need to come back here and grind this out someday. I would love to come back and try to fill up the collection log, try to get every single Barrows item on the list. I think that would make for a pretty nice video, especially if I show you all of the loot that I got from completing that log. So let me know what you think about that. And honestly, when I do that, I don't know if I'll go the max gear route, because I do think that it's going to take me quite a few Barrows chests to complete the entire set, so I'll probably go with less switches. So I might just use my void set, since that's such an easy switch with the helmets and whatnot. I might also wait on that idea until they release an update for Barrows. I know that people have always been asking for like some sort of Barrows pet, which would be pretty cool. If they do release that, I would definitely grind for that. But I do know that they are releasing a item with the Darkmire update, which is going to be the Strange Old Lockpick, and basically that lockpick will allow you to bypass any of these Barrows doors that are down here, so that'll really help out with the speed on the kills. And I could have definitely used that during this video because, like I said, I got some pretty bad paths throughout it. Running around the entirety of this area isn't that fun. But getting back to the video, I'd say that right now Barrows is a pretty good moneymaker since the price of runes are going up, especially the Bloods and Deaths. And actually, yeah, and the Chaos. The Chaos runes have seen an increase as well, so yeah. Even if you don't get an item here, you'll still make some decent money with the Mauritania Hard Diary done. And even if you don't have a lot of money for gear to start your Barrows grind, you can actually do this with a Black Salamander. So money shouldn't even be an issue when you're trying to do this moneymaker. As long as you have the right requirements, you should be good to go. And with that being said, we have finished the 1 hour of Barrows. You can go ahead now and check out the loot that we got. All of the Bloods, Chaos, Deaths, and Mine runes, along with the cash stack and the nice item that we got, which was the Torag's helm. Not the most expensive item, but I was still happy to see an item nonetheless. The total loot amounted to around 1.1 mil, so definitely not a bad run. We did manage to get 15 Barrows chests in this 1 hour, which I'd say is pretty decent considering some of the unlucky paths that we got, but you can definitely get a lot more with RNG on your side. And as with all of my videos, I do recommend that you put these runes in there for a nice price, perhaps even a little over market, and then just let them sit there and sell. That way you can get a little extra money for all of your hard work. But with everything sold, we are pretty close to our 1.1 mil mark, so once again, not a bad run. We can now go ahead and go to the next screen to see exactly how much money we made from this 1 hour. So if we subtract the cost of supplies, which was 342,222 GP, from the total amount of money that we made, which was 1,098,589 GP, we get a grand total profit of 756,367 GP. Now, like I said before in the video, this is lower than what the wiki stated, but again, it's because we got an item that wasn't really too expensive. If we got something like a Carol's Top or an Aram's piece, then we would have seen a lot more money. But this is a pretty nice amount, and this is pretty much what you can expect with the runes and the Mauritania hard diary. So make sure you get that diary done before doing Barrows. I just want to say thanks for checking out the video, and if you did enjoy it, please consider giving it a thumbs up and possibly a subscription. And as always, I will catch you guys in the next episode.